So welcome, everyone. I'm so happy you're all here to learn some things about this town. Hopefully we can alleviate some fears and give you some information that is helpful for you to share with your neighbors and friends. We have with us Gary Kelleher, who is the town administrator, and next to him is Karen Narwhal, and she is on the finance committee. I am here, Carrie Remington, library director. I see Lyndon in the audience here. He's on the select board. There are Nancy Nichols from the Council on Aging is here, and I have some of my board members, Ruth Rivesi, Tressa Santillo, and Jean Grant.
And Bill.
And I have and Bill Brazo. So what we've been trying to do is get people to understand how finances work and how civic things work. You know, people come from business backgrounds and they don't understand that municipalities and state government have different rules and regulations in which they follow. So we're hopefully going to enlighten you on some of those things. Not exactly sure where to start with this. Do you think maybe we should field some questions? And see where this goes?
Well, I will start, if you don't mind, Carrie.
Excellent, Gary, thank you.
First off, thank you very much for doing this.
You're welcome.
We've tried to have, and we have had successful meetings with different groups, trying to explain the process, explain where we are, how we feel we are at this time. Certainly we'll try to answer any questions you will. As you've all, I'm sure that you've all heard, it's been a very tumultuous, very difficult budget season for us, for the town of Rutland. So we're trying to do the best we can to use what we can in a couple of ways to bring us back up to snuff where I feel we should be. And people don't like to hear that, and that because the first and foremost is we all realize, yes, in fact, we do need a 2.5 override. We haven't had one here to affect the budget. And I'll say right off, right at the get-go, every year it seems that the town goes through this, and every year a miracle happens, and we're able to put things together for another year. I've said it publicly that funds are running out. Staffing is being reduced. We're concerned about public safety. We're concerned certainly about the library. We're concerned about the senior center, the community center, all town buildings. So Karen, Lyndon, Finance, Select Board, we've all worked together on this, and we've all bumped heads. Well, just you and me anyway. So honestly, we're trying to give you as much information as you need, trying to ensure where we stand. And with that, Karen, if you have anything to say, or if you just want to field questions, we'll get started.
So here's the two numbers you need to know. Our total revenue for the town is $25,535,573. That includes $150,000 in free cash, which is a one-time revenue, and $43,878 of ARPA funds. So we've got $25 million in revenue, and our expenses range from 27.2 to 25.7, and we're still working on the third version. And I can tell you, we need that 2.5. If the third version comes to be, it's going to be ugly. We're trying to, so the first version is with the 2.5. The second version is using stabilization, which is using, again, one-time funds, which would kick the can down the road for 1 year. Now you're going to affect our bond rating, so we'd have a harder time borrowing money at better pricing. And that means next year we wouldn't have those one-time funds. So that's about $580,000. So all that means is for 1 year we get kind of what we need. And then next year in the same situation. So I can't tell you, I've been sitting on this board, I think it's 11 years-ish. I kind of lost track. And yes, we have been able to pull a rabbit out of the hat. The rabbits are all gone. Unfortunately, guys, if you want services, I know it's painful to everyone. A 2.5 override is necessary. We'll field questions.
Karen, since we haven't had one, once the override passes, it's memorialized in your taxes every year, or it's, okay, I just,
Yes, it's, once you raise your rates, it stays there, that's the floor, that's the new floor.
And if that passes, if I may, that puts us where we're supposed to be, that puts staff back where they're supposed to be, that we've lost over the years. So it puts us in a good place. If it doesn't pass, then obviously we're really gonna have to put our heads together some more and see what possibly we can do. I agree with Karen, nobody wants to take the money out of your savings account, your stabilization, which is 1.168 million right now, which is, it's your savings account, is saved for a rainy day, but not, correct me if I'm wrong, not particularly for this purpose.
Yeah, it should be rainy day funds like the town hall needs, new roof, or one-time things, not ongoing.
Are you saying that the 2.5 gives you a new base to work from?
Yes,
Is that correct?
that is correct,
It'll never be lower, you'll only go from there up.
that is correct.
I think we have had a 2.5 override many years ago.
We did, for municipal government, we did, that
Right.
was the last one that was successful, and I forget what year it is, I'm sorry. But
all
we
right,
had
I
it to
can't
fund the
remember either.
municipal government,
Yeah,
yeah.
so, now, what you're saying sounds very good. The problem is, every single year, out of all the towns in the district, we have more problems than anybody else. So, I mean, you're telling me we're gonna have a bigger base next year, but I'm gonna have to look next year, maybe at another increase. You can't tell me yes, that now, I know that. No one can see the future. I think what I'm saying is that we got a problem we gotta fix. Where the growth in this town, which has been absolutely amazing, everywhere there's not a tree, they build a house. Everywhere there's a tree, they cut it down and build a house. They don't want to accept lot size improvements, because the town has tried before to make them lot size from, what, 1/4 acre to at least a 1/2 acre. I know you have a 1/2 acre if you don't have utilities. These problems still aren't going to be corrected. So I wouldn't want to be in your job right now. The worst thing is collective bargaining and establishing budgets. And it's very hard. Both things are very hard to do.
Yeah,
But if we have a larger base next year, based on your experience,
we did
do
some
you foresee
forecasting.
any,
We did some forecasting.
okay,
I did have a member of our finance committee, Alex, who spent some time doing some forecasting, and with some assumptions,
Yeah.
it looks like this 2.5 override, when we hopefully will pass it, when we have to pass it, guys, will last anywhere between 3 to 5 years. I would say that I would feel very comfortable in the saying 3.
all right, you can't ask for more than that.
Yeah.
Life is just too variable.
Our school budget went up significantly. The minimum local contributions went up because the state said we can afford to pay more, and we added 78 children to the school. So we are growing. And I'm going to say something personally. People move to Rutland because it's the cheapest place in the district to buy a home. They like all the other stuff, but they buy it because it's the cheapest place in the 5-town district
Oh, yes,
to own a home.
it's where you can go for
Right.
growing a family.
So
That's, cheap is relative to the.
I agree, to the other 5, yes.
Yeah.
It's not cheap. Yes.
So my name's Rich Lopez. I spoke at a recent select board meeting. I want to thank all of you for your hard work. This is hard and necessary work. There's no easy answer. There's nothing that's going to be without some pain, some sacrifice. My family and I moved here last summer, partly due to the affordability, but also because we just felt so welcomed here. As soon as we arrived last July, we moved in, we went to the 4th of July parade a few days after. It was fantastic. Just there are so many attractive things about this town for young families, but for everyone of all ages. And I see that how we approach the next 3, 5, 10, 20 years will really make or break us as a town for our long-term growth and sustainability. The override, I believe, is necessary, but like you were just alluding to, 3 to 5 years. It buys us some time, and I'm all for that. But I think we need continued open, transparent, and bi-directional conversations. I'll show up as much as I can. I have 3 small children. I'll come when I can. But just to make sure that we have vision and planning in order to build our tax revenue base in such a way that it can offset things strategically, right? Because you could have all the additional residential, plots and taxes, but if that doesn't scale with the overall growth, we need commercial tax revenue.
Absolutely.
And how we do that, I'm not putting forth a plan yet. I'm just saying, I think we could be smart, creative, innovative even in how we use our land. I see some buildings, I'm like, I don't know if anyone lives there. Could that be repurposed into a consignment shop or whatever? Like, right? Ways to build our tax base, and if we hopefully pass the 2.5 override, and then quickly, and I mean quickly, later this year, going into next year, start strategizing how we can attract more businesses to this town. Not like we're going to become another Holden or something necessarily, although Holden, went through its, growing pains as well. But I think we're at an inflection point as a town, and it's actually a wonderful opportunity. There will be hard decisions and hard choices, but if we raise our voices together, all voices in the town, young, old, in between, all demographics, right, just to get a sense of what are the needs, what are the aspirations of our town, I know we'll be successful.
We do have the master plan
Yes,
group
yes.
that's working on that.
Yes.
And there's a lot of things, and if you can't make the meetings, we're lucky enough that we have a very active cable that
Yeah.
puts it on YouTube, so you can watch them from vacation even.
To your response, sir, if I could, just to give you, I'm sure you know the information, but I'm sure you all know that Rutland Heights is going to be developed. About 1/3 of that parcel, there's going to be some 55 plus going up there. I think it's 140, if I'm wrong, 144 units.
Yeah.
And everybody says that, we've heard it so many times before, Rutland, you can't get there from here. But now we got a slew of extra people coming in. We have prime property up there that we can certainly, and that's certainly our plan. We've talked about it. We need some commercialism. We don't need a Stop and Shop put up in the middle of Rutland Heights, but we need stuff that certainly to service the residents of Rutland and those who can see these other good items that we hope to have.
And are there ways to project or predict, okay, if this small or mid-sized commercial area gets planned or developed, and then X amount of tax revenue comes in, like, are there ways to calculate, say, okay, if we bring this in, and then we do the 2.5 override, then that'll actually make it more sustainable rather than 3 to 5 years? Like,
Yes,
and-
there
okay,
there
so-
are ways to
Okay,
model that.
I figured, but
Yeah, I think there's roughly, once full build, roughly $800,000 that you'll be taking in on additional tax revenue.
Yes.
You said there were plans in making, what are they? Because personally, I've lived here for 55 years, and I wouldn't want to be another Holden. To me, I would move away. What are your plans that you just talked about?
Well, the plans are to keep it here. Honestly, everybody loves it here. We don't want to, no, I don't think anyone wants to see it up Holden. We don't want all of Main Street to be supermarkets and small shops. We want it on the outskirts. We have a real estate up on Route 68 as well, so it keeps everything out of the center of town. But the plans is working through our RDIC and our AgCom, and to see what's available to get some commercial stuff in town. We can't say what. We just know the population is going to grow because of the new units coming in, and we want you folks, everybody in Rutland, to be able to stay in Rutland.
Say one thing, listening to Rick, we just snuck today. But anyway, listening to him, it sounds interesting because there's been a master plan and stuff proposed before. There's been different classifications of tax rate for zoning for businesses and residential before, and none of them ever passed. And at that time, Rutland was Rutland. It's where the number of livestock equal the number of people. And you work with people like Bob Cannon or Dave Anderson or many others in town. We try hard, but we weren't ready to move. Sounds like the attitude has changed.
We have some areas that are zoned for industrial, we have village districts, we have several different that the planning board has put in.
And we had those. The only problem at the time we had them before, we never had the utilities to service them.
Right.
And they were usually in locations not desirable.
Right.
One thing that may be helpful in convincing people that the override needs to pass is to have some data behind the assertion that like Rutland is undertaxed right now. What I mean is, like in the warrant, like when this goes to the town meeting, the stuff in the warrant, like the explanation part, should maybe include something like, you know, according to like our peer towns, Rutland is we're undertaxing ourselves, like we're undertaxed. So I'm sure like there's been comparisons done with our peer towns, and I don't mean Holden because they're double our population, but I mean like other similar towns to us in like size, like income level, house, property tax value, like in Worcester County and like parts east a little bit. And if you can figure out where Rutland falls in like that tax schematic, you may be able to better convince people that we need to pass the 2% override.
It has to be before the town meeting.
Right.
And the hard part comes in finding a comparable town
Yeah.
that is part of a 5-town district like we are. I mean, we can find the comparable towns,
I think that's fine.
but you can't, but the problem is 60% of our budget goes to the schools.
Okay.
So, and that's another reason why we're so desirable. So we need the education. It's not municipal against education. We
Right.
need it for everything. However, to try to to say we're undertaxed, we're gonna go with, I don't know, a town out west that got its own school district. It doesn't have the 5 towns. That
Right.
throws everything off. The problem is we are in an anomaly because Wachusett's such a large district. And it's got 5 very different towns.
I would just say don't let that statistic stop you, because I still think people would want to know how are we being taxed compared to other towns regardless of school district, because every town has to pay for their schools in some way, shape, or form. I totally agree, we're in a weird situation with a 5-town district, that's a little unusual, but I don't think it's a bad idea to still include comparable tax information, because every town, every municipality in the state has to pay for education in some way. But,
Yeah, but depending, they have more say. If we own the schools in our town, and we had a high school and an elementary and a middle school in town, they would be a department. So we'd have a little bit more say than we do currently. Because we cannot affect a change to Wachusett unless we get another town to stand up with us. Whereas it's not as easy as going and saying, you need to lose 300, you need to lose 400, it's not that easy, because we have to get 2 towns, and not just 2 finance committees, 2 select boards. It's 2 groups of taxpayers. You know, so that is a huge concern. It's not as easy to affect the change on the schools as it would be if we own the school. And I'm not saying that we should do it. That's not what I'm saying.
Question is this meeting being recorded?
Yes,
Is it going to be something that's available for the Rutland cable?
yes. And on YouTube,
Pardon?
and it'll be uploaded to YouTube.
Okay. That's one of the first moves in getting the information out for 2.5. The 2.5, there's no question about it, we need it. I think you've made a good case for it. I think you've explained that you're trying to do something that will allow the town to breathe for the next 3 to 5 years, or even maybe longer. And it's not gonna be easy, but you can't, politically, the committee did the right thing. They picked on the old people and young people.
No.
No, let me just say it, I'm just taking it in everyday language, because you
The
want...
committee did not.
Oh, there's no committee, whoever did, I'm saying the political fathers, whoever did it. In any case, they did it, and that's the right thing to do.
But that's off the table.
But, I know that, I understand.
Okay, I
Well, what it
I
does,
don't need any
it
more
gets people-
misinformation.
it
That's
gets
important to
people
know.
who
The
are-
library,
I want to comment and say, so I think you're saying that the scenario where the Council of Aging and the library gets cut completely, that's gone.
that's gone.
Okay,
Yes, that's gone.
however, there's a however, and that however is, the library, I can't speak for Council of Aging, I'm sorry, I'm not versed in that. I'm one of the board members of the library here. I'm also a librarian by profession. So, the however is that even if the library is not cut from the budget and we get some funding, we will not have enough money in any of the proposals to remain certified. Since the certified, so kind of it'll be like, we'll have Rutland Library, but we won't be able to borrow books from other libraries. We'll be able to go to other libraries, but we can't check out books. We can't get books through interlibrary loan, through our own borrowing catalog. That's off the table. So, yeah, we'll have our library, but.
So if you look at this page,
Exactly.
significant cuts. So
Yeah.
there's elimination and there's significant cut. So
Yes,
significant cut shows what will
I
still
looked at that,
happen.
yeah.
Right. So even if we like save Rutland with like the stabilization idea or something else, it won't be enough essentially to save the library. It won't be enough money. We have to meet our minimum requirement as required by the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners, which is all detailed in like Massachusetts law and code regulations. So, we will be eventually decertified we can't tell you how to vote, but if the 2% override does not pass, this library will become decertified.
Absolutely.
So-
No, I agree with everything you're saying, and I think that's why I want to know if it's recorded.
Right.
That type of stuff is gonna go.
But if it does pass, you'll be able to stay certified?
Yes,
Yes.
because it'll be the minimum, and then it'll be even like the minimum, and then it'll be like, but here's what we really actually need to thrive instead of just exist.
My main point was, you aren't gonna find more energetic groups than the Council on Aging or the library. I mean, oh, we got an ambulance problem. Oh, we'll get a few people concerned about that. Or maybe the road isn't gonna be plowed out there, that should have been plowed. It's a dirt road, so we forgot it. But you do the library and you do the Council on Aging, you've got the core of the town. And, this town has grown in age as well as in numbers, but it's really the right thing to do to get the meeting out and we get the information out. So, yeah, that's the type of stuff we have to have.
I know the
2.5%.
Finance Committee appreciates Carrie holding this, because it's a great way for us to get the word out. So this is a
Yes.
perfect way to meet,
Right.
because most people don't want to come out at 6:15 and stay till 9 o'clock, so.
Sure.
It's been as one of the trustees and someone who's lived in Rutland for 35 years, it's very important to us, library leadership, that people are aware of what's at stake.
Yeah.
I go to town meeting, I'm not always up to speed on every single warrant article, and to sit in that meeting and think, oh, I'm just hearing now that the library could close, or the library could be defunded to the point that it will not have the richness of what we offer. That's why, we've talked about having this dialogue and to try to get the word out. Because I think if you just go into the polling booth and there's an override on the budget, people are like, what? I think there was one last year and it didn't pass. 2 years ago, it didn't pass. So it's very important to us that at least our community is educated about what is at stake. And, every person, every family has to make their own decision about whether they can support an override. And, that's clearly everyone's, individual choice. But, and so like Trust said, we're not telling anyone how to vote, but we want people to be aware of what is the big question. So we appreciate people coming in to hear about it.
Do we know where the notices are posted for the public meetings or information? Used to be on the pharmacy, I think, in town, on the bulletin board ad outdoors. At one time,
Are you talking the town meeting?
town meeting, or even the iteration of budgets, something like that put up in a public place,
It will be put up on the town website.
yeah?
That will be put up once we finalize the third option. We're still working through cuts.
Thursday night.
Thursday night at
But
6:15.
that's the only place.
Well, then we'll do something here and we'll make sure people
All right.
know what we can.
It's not going in a
Well-
place like the US Post Office.
I
It's not
don't,
going
I
on the
don't think
bulletin
it's
board.
gonna,
It might
I don't
be
think it's
in the business.
usable in that,
I don't know if you can.
I mean, it's probably, what, 7 or 8 pages and
Oh, no,
It
it's,
looks like that.
You just
No,
mean the
I'm not
notice?
referring to that. I'm referring to just statements, even if you paraphrase them. Yeah, paraphrase. Let people know the library's in question, council agency's in question, the 2.5 can save the town. I mean, you don't have, heck, we've had presidents who told us things in paraphrases. So I'm not talking, putting out all that data, no one will read it.
Right.
But what it will be, sir, is something in this effect, which was posted. We've got some final numbers to adjust. We've got to take one of those iterations off. So once we finish Thursday night's meeting with both the committee and the board and the office of the town administrator all agrees on how we're going to do this and get it up, this will be up.
Thank you.
yes, Nancy.
I just wanted to bring up, there was some talk at the finance committee meeting about a postcard. You probably all have received them from landscapers in the past, you know. Those are relatively inexpensive to send, and if we can strategically put this information, they can go out to every household. Problem is, you can't use taxpayer funding. So they looked and asked, you know, to some of the Friends groups, but it's also something that the public could form a group and raise money to mail those.
Right. I would be interested in collaborating with others to figure out a way where even if we pool several people's, donations together. I mean, do you have a rough sense of what
I
that
do,
would
it's
cost?
about, the last mailing that went out, I know the postmaster said cost $600 and somewhat dollars when I originally.
600
priced it.
for the whole town?
For the whole town, the other one was
Oh, we
800
can
and
totally do
something.
that.
It's roughly 22 cents a
We just
postcard
need,
and
if you get like 10
3,600
people,
households.
20 people, that's all you
Well,
need
you
to.
probably don't even have to, because the Friends of the Library have some funds and are probably going to be able to help
Yeah,
support
no, I mean,
a
absolutely.
But
town
maybe you could save some of those for other things too, if you could
And
get some
hopefully
public.
we can,
You know, it's like if
you know,
everybody
work
threw in
with
$1.
Yeah, everyone pitch in. Yeah, that'd be
Yeah, I think the point is to make sure we have all the correct iterations of the
Right.
choices of the budget
Yes.
before anything gets mailed,
Right.
because now we've already removed one of the scenarios.
So after
You know?
Thursday, everything
Yeah.
will be set for town meeting for
I can't say that.
Oh,
There's a large amount of money that still has to be removed.
Oh.
This is not an easy task. Removing just what we had to remove to leave 150 coming out of stabilization, now it's looking like it's another 170. I mean, this is not something where we just go through and go, wee, wee,
no, I
wee.
totally
Take some
get that.
time.
I'm just thinking strategically, it could make sense then to wait a little longer
Yes.
to allow the process to unfold and then say about a week before the town meeting. So that would be May 1st, right? That's a Monday. So like around then, we blast the town in a good way,
Yeah.
blast the mailboxes so everyone gets a card. I mean, I think that's totally achievable.
I saw your hand, so I wanted to let you speak. I'm just raising my hand for people who have not seen people's hands. And then I'll say something after.
I just think it would be a good idea to make it very clear on the postcard
Yeah.
what the information is, because sometimes
Yeah.
seniors especially, because I'm one of them, don't understand the wording. So if you could make it just simple and clear and just get it out there.
And another thing, I don't know if it was said earlier, is that the library, we've talked with all the boards over the years about having these information sessions ongoing for the public, so people know how every board works. And like we would have it here, it would be very similar to what we're doing today, to have these. We could do it like every quarter, right, every season, so that people can come and ask their questions. Because so many people, when you go on Facebook in these groups and people are like, what, there was an election today, what, there was a town meeting today, you know, to make everything available so people understand how the boards work and how your money is spent. So we would really love to have more of these types of sessions with all the groups.
Hi, Beth Hussey. Thank you for coming. And I'm kind of taking advantage of you guys being here. These are just some thoughts related, like this, all these budget issues are so intertwined with all the different departments. And when you look at the pie chart, it's very clear that the school takes a lot of money.
But that's normal. That's
I know,
normal.
but, so one question I have, which you may not be able to answer, is, I'm all for supporting the schools, whatever it takes to keep the library open, but what kind of auditing goes on with the school district? Like, I've heard that a large amount of money has been basically lost, And that's like through the grapevine. But what kind of measures are taken to find ways to save money in the school district? They leave the lights on in the school, like every light on all night long. And you see school buses that are like almost empty. Like, is there anyone
Okay,
looking at
the
ways
empty
to...
school buses, I gotta answer that. You have to have a seat on a school bus for every child. Whether that child is gonna be driven every day by their mother or not, by law, they have to have a seat. That's just the law. Because one day that mother or father might decide not to drive Junior to school, so they have to have a seat. So that's always the problem. So we gotta put that aside, because that's something that they require. I would recommend watching our meeting. What was do you remember the date that Wachusett came?
2 weeks to 6?
It was the 6th of March. Look to see if we had Wachusett come, and they did a wonderful job. The new superintendent and the business manager were there. They answered a lot of questions regarding the $1.65 million that was overspent.
That's on YouTube, Karen?
It's on YouTube. It's yeah, so you can go online and look. It's the cable company puts it out, and I want to say it was the 6th. But if you go to the finance committee, you can see our agendas going back, and you can look to make sure that's the date. I'm sorry, I don't remember all of the dates. Kind of blends the 9th.
Oh, wait a minute, hold on.
And it was a joint meeting.
It was yeah.
It was
I
the
think it was the
finance
9th.
committee with the school district?
Yeah, with the school districts, both of them. We have both Bay Path and we had Wachusett, and we had the select board in it with us as well.
But I believe also the school committee meetings are also televised. Usually you can watch them on cable. You can talk to your school committee members, like find out who, I know a few of them, and you can touch base with them. And we do have a new superintendent, so we can cross our fingers and hope. And there's a new special ed director too, because our special ed department needs a lot of attention as well in our schools.
I can tell you for as many years as I've been on this committee, this year was the first year we had seen as much transparency. So that, and I think Lyndon, you'll can.
No, so we are hopeful there'll be improvements.
We are very
going
hopeful.
forward. So that doesn't,
Right.
discount
I would say-
the fact that there's money that was.
Right.
that all of a
I would
sudden
recommend
wasn't
watching
there.
that. They explain themselves, and then after you watch that, I would speak to the school committee members, because they're the ones that are overseeing the school district.
I think the main thing to remember, and that's what makes the job so hard for town officials, is the school is independent. Wachusett Regional School District. It doesn't have to answer to you. It only has to answer to the educational process in the state of Massachusetts. That's why this bus issue is a contest every year. And the only reason I speak about it is I spent a little over 6 years on the Wachusett School Committee back in the 70s. And I also was on the town committee for another number of years. And you can't go to sleep at 3 in the morning. It's just driving you crazy in your mind. But it's one of you want to do something for the town, you live here. And on the other hand, you've got to comply with what's required. It's a real contest. But it'd be very interesting for people to see, just as long as they realize they can't tell the superintendent to take $200,000 out of that program. Because it ain't gonna work.
The best thing to do is watch that meeting, and then get in touch with your school committee members, because they do have the
That's right.
right to affect change.
Karen, that was on the 16th.
16th?
16th, and Bay Path is on there as well. And it's
Yes.
a nice comparison because that was a breath of fresh air.
Always is.
Yes.
Yeah, to expand on what Rich was saying, this is great, we get the override, we save the library, the cost to the aging, but we're kicking the can down the road without changing the plan.
It seems like when you go on the
We
cable
seem to be in,
stations, there's nothing
the
wrong.
town of Rutland seems to be in the business of building homes,
Isn't it?
which only brings more
Seems
children
like
and
when we go
taxes
on
to
the
the school
cable
system.
stations, there's nothing
So,
wrong. I'll find out.
we really do need
You know,
further
then
plans
how
to
you
get
go
more
back to
promising
those
in
old
town.
ones, I'll ask.
To relieve the tax burden on the citizens, because
We know a number of people that
I'm
don't,
in
they watch
retirement
the
age.
TV.
I'm gonna be
A
taxed.
lot of the older people just want to ask them to rerun it.
And I'm not the
Talk
only one
to
that
people
feels that.
down before.
I talk to a lot of seniors that feel like, I'm on a fixed income.
That's Nancy.
I can't continue to absorb these tax raises over, year after year.
I'm in agreement soon.
So I really do think we need a plan to change what we've been doing that hasn't been working.
Yeah, but I think also too, part of it, when like talking to school committee members, unfortunately for all of us, we're now at the end of the budget year. We need to have these conversations like right away, July, August. That's the time when we know we need to go to the school committee meetings and be like, we need to change this, we need to do something. Not right now, it's too late. Now we're playing catch up, you know?
And the only other thing I'd like to add is, how was the decision made to cut both the library and the council for the aging? And I know all the other departments are being cut, they're being reduced, but they're not being eliminated.
And the Council on Aging and the library are not
I
being
understand that.
eliminated. So that needs to go away. They are not being eliminated.
However,
They are being cut by the same percentages as all the other departments.
right.
So they, when the cuts went through, it was cut by the same percentages, the same way the calculations occurred.
However, originally, one of the scenarios was to eliminate.
That's been taken off.
That's been taken off since.
That's gone.
And,
It was up for 1 week and taken off.
right, by decertifying the library though, is only a slower death. That's all it is.
And I'm with you, because I can tell you that with the cuts to the library, the cuts to the Council on Aging, there are cuts to public safety that are going to hurt. We're going to lose our ambulance on a Saturday, and we're not going to have enough people in DPW. So there's a lot of things. There's a whole list. We're focusing on the two today, the library and the Council on Aging, but in all honesty, every single department is taking a hit.
Well, hence the reason I say we need to change the plan. We really do. We can't continue going the way, the path we've been going. With just building homes and increasing.
I recommend getting involved in the growth management. I get involved in the planning board, getting
Didn't
involved.
we do that?
I can't. I can only be on the finance committee. I have to stay impartial.
But I mean,
cannot
we
be
did
involved.
take a town vote to reduce the amount of building. And didn't that fall apart at some point?
We still have a smart growth plan in effect.
Do we?
All it does is you can build no more than 36 houses per year.
Yep.
But there were some
are
exceptions.
I was
exceptions
gonna
to the
say,
rule.
there's a whole bunch of
Lots of
grandfathers.
exceptions, grandfathered and the approval not required. So I would recommend, look at the planning board's got limits too. They're required to do by state law. I mean, the only way to change this is we have to, like, really start in and say, okay, one of the towns put a limit on total building permits, and I'm not sure how that happened, but they did. I don't remember when that was, but.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to building, don't get me wrong, I'm not opposing it, but we need a more balanced approach, that's all.
We do, and
Yes.
I would like to bring up one other thing,
question you
especially
initially
this
asked,
nice gentleman
because
over here.
not to be confused, that did not come from the finance committee, that did not come from the board of selectmen. That first initial budget came from my office, and without the use of stabilization and free cash, because that takes a 2/3 vote. First one, very quickly taken off the table, but we just trying to show everybody what's on the plate. That's off, we've said it at several meetings, Karen said it again today, that's off the table. We don't want to do that, we never did.
Gary, I know you did that, but I think it was a brilliant move. You wouldn't have had this meeting. And this meeting is working out, and it's good, it's getting out data.
It is good, and we need
So-
more of them, because
No,
in the
that's
past,
fine.
the public information sessions hasn't worked, years past, but
Yeah.
I went up with Nancy Nichols, I met with the seniors at the community center. Very nice, they pretty much picked me up by the scuff of the neck and the belt and threw me out of the building, but it was very nice. Very nice, I had a very nice meeting, and Nancy, if you want to share it, also, that I did contact the two members from the school committee, and they are willing to meet.
Oh, good.
Okay, just so you know that, we'll talk about that later. I just wanted to answer the gentleman's question, because I don't blame anybody else, I just had to look at the numbers. All of you probably don't even, pretty soon I'm gonna be on a fixed income too. So, I've been here a year, I don't know if anybody, you know me from a past life, I was in the DPW for 10 years prior to this. So I've been here for a year, and we do now, hopefully, maybe, well, I can't say yet, but have a new town administrator coming in, and he's been watching all the meetings, he's up to speed on what's been going on with our problems and where we are, so I want him, actually, if it is him, I guess I can't say too much, but to be the best you ever had, and I mean that, I told him that, so. Just answer your question.
Thanks, Gary.
So as far as distributing information, I want to make sure I'm sharing everything correctly. We have 3 options now left on the table, or just 2?
3.
We have
We have
so
three,
pretty much
three.
1, 3, and 4 that are on here. The stabilization,
Correct.
No,
No.
number 3 is not finalized yet.
okay.
Well, that, yeah, but, okay.
So please do not disseminate it because it is not
We're
finished
waiting.
yet.
But number 2 is off the board.
2 is off the board.
2 is off the board.
One is our
But we're not-
hope.
1 is our hope, and then 3 we're not certain on yet until,
We're hoping, this is a very large number, guys. I can't tell you how painful this is. I'm not gonna say we're gonna have it by Thursday. I'm gonna say we're gonna try for it on Thursday. It's a lot of work, and we're trying to do it in the best way possible. There are 7 of us that are working on this, so.
And so,
I'd
you
like
know,
to say
in-
Thursday, yes, but I can't promise
In
you.
that regard, whatever we do decide, the next iteration would be, after the override, already, it's a $300,000 slice from the police department. It's $270 from fire, and it's $299,000 from DPW. So that, we have to put those final numbers together, but obviously, that's not gonna happen when, I'm not gonna say if, when the 2.5 override passes, because that'll put us back to where we were, where we should be.
I just wanted to make a comment. I moved here, Linda and I moved here 20 years ago with 2 young children. One of the things that's been talked about, and I think that a community group might be able to get together when we talk about planning, is, I'm not sure of the technical term, but some kind of responsible building from the builders in town where they build so many, they buy a fire engine or an ambulance or put in a park or something. I think that needs to be researched and some kind of a plan put in place, because that's giving back to the community. It happens in other communities all across the country.
And there must be ways to calculate, might not be with absolute certainty, but to calculate, okay, if we put in this many units of 55 and older, that's going to put a unique strain on ambulance and police and public safety. And that, so it's like, it's this push and pull.
But you can't say that, because now you're pitting
No.
municipals against seniors.
No, I
against
understand that,
school
but,
kids, you know.
no, I understand that, but the.
Because school-caged children can be that much of a drive
No,
on the ambulance as well.
I get that, but I'm just trying to wrap my head around how this works, because I'm very new to these processes, so I'm trying to understand.
There was a thing a few years ago, because I've been in Rutland now for like 7 years, and a few years into that, they had they had a session on sort of what was the over/under on all the new developments that were in, you know, because the idea is you build more houses, more people come, more families come, the tax base should go up, but then compared to what's the drain on the services?
Right.
So the
Overall,
findings
yeah.
were basically super slim, probably I think less than a percentage point in the plus.
Right.
But basically this was standard deviation.
Yeah.
It actually could go plus or minus, and it was very, very minimal. It was not
Right.
a big positive that people
Right.
were expecting. It was
And
barely even a break, even if they were lucky and everything went the right way. So
And-
that's how we've been.
And I think that lines up
Yeah.
with my intuition about it.
Exactly.
In the and your name again?
Bill Brasso.
Like Bill was saying, right, we need to balance the approach. So if we do,
Right.
we set up guidelines where if we build, 100 units, whether they're 55 and over or not or whatever, calculate that,
Yeah.
and then say we need to offset that by this amount of commercial revenue.
Right.
There are ways we can integrate these different additions, I'm sure there are ways to do it, and again, I think as a community, we could figure this out, and we can develop an approach that's balanced, that integrates it, that hopefully in the long run, it's a net positive, rather than we're at the 0 mark and we're just barely getting past the, it's gonna take a lot of hard work and a lot of,
Well, keep in mind
but
that they're bringing in a lot of tax money with those new
No,
properties, and
right.
those taxes aren't going towards the school, so they're,
Right.
so there is an offset, because
Right.
they're paying for education that they're not getting.
Sure.
But that tax money's coming in that's gonna support the other.
And I don't wanna
departments, so
downplay the
It's hard
benefit.
to
No, I know.
even try to even those kind of things out, because everybody needs all the services And the value of your home is based on having those services.
No, I
So-
understand that, I'm just, yeah.
Yeah.
I also want to comment, because I don't want to put any negative connotation on the builders of the town, because when I said responsible building, we've had a lot of builders. I think they would actually be willing to do this, when I talked about
Yeah.
responsible building, because they've come up and stepped up and done a lot of things. The new kitchen in the Council on Aging was a couple of builders. They have paid to open the pool before, built the gazebo. So I think I think that's the key, is the communication and working together.
Yeah.
You can get everybody on board.
Could Lyndon just explain a little bit? I'm sorry, Dale Hayden, I've been in town 75 years. How a 55 and over complex at Rutland Heights Hospital that's been vacant since 1991 is going to help with the taxes? Because the seniors that are moving into those 55 and over are selling their homes to young families with a lot of kids, more kids. So how does that help our taxes?
Well, it's gonna bring in, what's the estimated amount of taxes,
It's roughly
$980,000
I didn't bring that to the table.
Yeah.
to the revenue side?
Why aren't we looking at more commercial property?
Well, yeah, well, actually, I should give my 2 cents. First of all, I want to thank Gary and Karen. They're in very difficult positions. I was on the finance committee for 12 years. I cut budgets every time I was on their departments. So when we're talking about, I don't want people to be under the impression that we're mismanaging, because when Gary said that we've been lucky enough to get things and be able to keep things moving, we did, but at a cost. I mean, we still had to cut people, we didn't backfill people. What did we have like in turnover last year? Like
62.
62 people left. You know, that have been part-time, full-time, whatever, but we've had turnovers in staffing that have been significant. And a lot of it is, you know, you go to town meeting and you say, we can't afford step increases, we can't, can't afford cost of living, but yet all these other things are being funded by the school. And I don't want to pit the school against us right now, especially this year, because we caused our own problem by selling all those houses and bringing all these new families in. We're a bedroom community, and there's a cost to that. And people like the charm of that. They don't want some big industrial park or anything necessarily, but they want to see more revenue. So we do have an economic development committee that we've established. You know, even with like the milk room and lilac hedge, and we have a lot of like really attractive things in town that bring a lot of people in. Look what happens on the 4th of July and at Christmas and stuff. So we have significant things that attract people here. So we just need to encourage small businesses to think that it's worth moving to Rutland, because we don't have great access. We're not going to have a big grocery store, because my son drives a tractor trailer. He would not drive it through Rutland trying to get to stores and stuff like that. We just don't have that kind of access. So that's not realistic. But I just want you to know that we are aware, we work really hard, we're very limited. We have to do whatever the school, whatever burden the school puts on us, we're responsible for that. This year it's significant. I am very conservative. I don't like to increase your taxes. I'm not supportive of these constant overrides, but we're at a crisis situation where we just cannot afford to function. If the override passes, it will bring the departments up to where they should be, backfilling those positions, getting the supplies and the resources that they should have had over the last 20 years, that they just have continually had cut. So it's not going to solve every problem, but it's going to bring us up to a functioning status. And there are plans to try to look forward and bring in as much revenue as we can, but we need to be realistic. We're not going to bring in these big businesses that are going to bring in a lot of commercial funds that are going to solve all of our problems. But we do need to solve the problems that we have now, or we're going to see some real big issues. Look at our infrastructure. I mean, talk to Carrie. There's been so many issues with the library and all our buildings. We need to put money into our infrastructure. There's plans for that in the override to look at taking some of the ARPA funds and getting some plans, and we're going to have an opportunity we'll be able to borrow and maybe rebuild or build some new infrastructure in town. We can't let things just crumble around us because we're just trying to make ends meet. So you're not seeing it because people work really hard to make sure you get your services. But it's at a cost. We're losing people all the time. And like I said, who wants to work in a town where every year you're threatened, your job is threatened? When it came to the library and the Council on Aging were going to be closed, those are jobs and resources. And people depend on those resources. And we're still looking at, cutting police officers and fire, not having ambulances on Saturdays. And I mean, this is significant. And like I say, I'm not big in increasing your taxes, but we need to make a choice. Do we want our town to build and provide services that are necessary, or do we want to just continue to make ends meet? And we will, but people aren't going to cut the grass. I don't think we should have big 4th of July parties and big Christmas parties and everything else because everybody else is coming in and enjoying our town when we can't even cut our grass. So why are we cleaning up after all these people? We need to make a decision whether we want to pay and be where we want to be, or we're going to have to accept to not have those kind of opportunities. I won't be on the select board, so I won't be the one to say it, but I would not go forward with those kind of events if we don't have a DPW that is staffed, that can manage our properties. We're going to have people up to their knees in grass and ticks because we can't cut our grass. We just need to be realistic. And like I said, I don't like to increase taxes, but I don't see where we have a choice if we want to maintain our town. So, but the management, I mean, we've managed with what we've had. Karen's in a really difficult situation. Everybody hates the finance committee because all we ever do is tell you, we can't afford you, cut your budget. And it goes, and usually it's got to go across the board. And Gary knows this because when he was in the DPW, when I was on the finance committee, all I ever did is say, cut 10%, cut this, or whatever, and he just had to do it. And then we managed to function. But that's not the way you want to operate. So people just need to understand where we're at. We're not trying to increase people's taxes just because we want to spend more money in town. We have a serious situation where we need to maintain our buildings and rebuild our staff so that we can provide the services that are needed. So that was
Well said.
And I would like to hear from Carrie and Nancy a little bit about some of the services that are provided that will be lost so that people understand. I know, did you bring information from the other departments, Gary? Do you know?
I did.
So, I mean, I encourage you to see the impact it will have whether we have the override or we don't have the override, just so you're better educated. So.
It's nice and having you. Thank you very much. Sorry you're not going to run again.
I'm not, but thank you very much. It's a lot of years, but thank you.
Is it too late to change your mind?
Yeah.
So just as Lyndon mentioned, the cuts we're talking about staff-wise, so we'll be losing 2 full-time firefighters, and like he mentioned, an ambulance service on Saturdays, which would make us go to an on-call ambulance service, which delays response time, very important. We're going to be losing 3 part-time police officers who work regular shifts and help us fill shifts that don't have enough personnel. So you're going to be going back to 1 patrolman on the overnight, or 1 patrolman, or sergeant, or whatever the OIC is on the 3 to 11. You'll be reducing the staff at the DPW, which was already reduced. You'll have 1.5 people working for DPW on the roads, to take care of your roads, to cut the grass, do whatever they can to keep up. And one of the reasons that we were at 1.5 is because we recently had a CWO, chief water operator, that left the town. What we've done with that to save money is not to post that and fill that position. So we have a person in the DPW that's licensed to run a plant, so he takes care of the management of the plant on a part-time basis. And the foreman from DPW takes care of the construction, any constructions that needed or fixes, repairs for the water department on a part-time basis. So other than that, it was still a $299,000 cut from DPW. It's not, it's very hard to sit up here and smile and be giving you the gloom and doom. We're just trying to, as everybody wants to do, and we're doing that. I think the Board of Selectmen, FinCom, everybody here is being as transparent and open as possible. We've really tried, and that was the reason why I put the first statement up. It's got to be changed, it's got to be edited, and it'll be reposted once we know what the final draw is.
And also, I think DPW, they're really great. If you follow their Facebook page, they list like everything. Like they post information on there, how much we're going to be losing in plowing, right? Things aren't going to be plowed. But if you follow their Facebook page, they're very transparent about where their money is spent and where their cuts are going to be.
And they've been stretched thin in the past as it is, because you have roughly roughly, I don't know if you know an exact figure, but I think 7 miles, and God knows how many houses of roads, infrastructure, it's all been accepted. Didn't get any extra trucks, didn't get any extra staffing, so it cuts them a little bit thin.
Terry, you want to talk about the library?
So,
Oh, get up.
So the library budget, I'm still waiting for the final version of that budget, which would probably be another 5% cuts, I'm thinking, I'm not even sure, but I took, I believe, 20% out of the budget, which pretty much leaves us down to bare bones. I'm sure that it's decertification, which means reciprocal privileges, which also means Libby. We have a lot of online customers, a lot of people who look at Libby by Overdrive, and they don't even come in here because they don't have to, because they already have the information that they need to circulate the material that they want through their tablet or device. So those people will be terminated. Reciprocal privileges means if we can't support the library here to full capacity, which means satisfying the Board of Library Commissioners' responsibility, well, we have a responsibility to them to increase our budget 1.25% in the average of the previous 3 years. So it's not even a significant jump each year, but they want to make sure that we're always going in the direction of up. So they insist that we do that. We have, in the past, received 2 waivers. 2 years ago, we received a waiver because we were underfunded. And I believe in 2008, we received a waiver because we were underfunded, which allowed us to maintain certification, which the reciprocal privileges was instrumental in that. You know, we were able to still borrow the things we needed from other libraries. The one thing that was affected is the funding, the grant money that comes with it. That was reduced by a couple of $1,000s. The library receives approximately $10,000 a year by maintaining certification, which is great. So with that, we utilize that money to continue paying staff, paying even as much as electric bills or heating costs that we are not covered from our budgets that many times run short. Fortunately, we have a couple of avenues. And our friends group, without our friends, we would not even be able to provide you with the museum passes and many of the things that we are able to add as great things. A lot of the programs that are run by Miss Aislinn are 100% supported by our friends group, which is sometimes several $1,000s a year, which is really helpful and beneficial to the community. So there's a lot of things that we manage to hold together without the funding that we should be receiving from the community, but we still do it. And here I am again on a Sunday doing things for this community. I don't even live in this community, but my heart is truly here, and I want to provide a service and I want to provide information to you, which is what I think is my main function. So here we are, and I'm hoping that we're going to continue giving you this kind of information until voting, until the town meeting. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Carrie, if the library lost certification, and then the town came up with money like the following year, it's not, there's like if you lose certification, you can't get it back that readily, is that correct?
I believe that if we do not get the funding, July 1st is when we will be decertified.
And then
Even though I don't submit the paperwork for state aid until the end of, I think the end of October. But they would know about this defunding thing immediately.
Yeah.
They would know about it, and that would be it.
Well, she wants to know too, like, how easy is it to get it back? Like,
Well,
next year if our
so
budget is met.
generally what happens is if you do without something for a year, then you finally get with it. I keep saying if the override isn't successful, I think you don't have to give the community too long before they're begging you to put it back on the table. Let's ask us for another override, we promise we'll do it.
But how long does it take? Like, does it take another
I
year?
think it's another whole year, yes, it is another year before you get your certification back. When we were had our waivers, we had to wait another year before we filled out the paperwork for the following year. But with the waiver, it's not so scary as completely decertified. But
And we
it's
would
the
also
entire
use the
year.
Smithsonian money, correct? With
Well-
the decertification or just the closing, which is all?
Well, that's the thing, I have a conference call about the Smithsonian, because there was some additional funding, because we were so successful, they give us the opportunity to have some additional funding for more programming. So that comes with $10,000. So when I speak with them on Tuesday, I believe is my conference call about this, I'm gonna ask them, because if we're not certified, if we're not, I can't imagine trying to glue this thing together to accept their funding to do more programming when I'm gluing it together with popsicle sticks. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure that, I feel like that would have to go.
Yeah, I was gonna also add that, like, bare bones, like, not having enough, just because we have a budget doesn't mean we can really do a lot with it. And one thing that I think that will be significantly impacted will be the hours that this library is open. And with that, it means not just the programming, but the availability of meeting rooms is gonna be severely impacted. And that's another thing we wanna get out there to everybody. It's, yeah, great, I can't get my book, who cares? No, like, well, if you meet here like every Monday, or not Monday, hold on. If you meet here when the library is open, that's gonna majorly be in jeopardy, because there won't be enough money, because we don't have enough money to pay staff members, so we have to, like, severely cut down the hours.
And as far as reciprocal privileges, people have to realize, you might have a library card for Holden, but they don't have to give you a book.
No, not only.
Just because you can't get it here now, you can't go to Holden and get
Correct.
a library book.
None of your other library cards, except for Boston Public Library, but that's different. If you have a CW Mars card, that's not gonna work. You can go to that library, but you can't check out a book there. You can't use their Overdrive, Libby, none of that. And some places may actually, if we become decertified, they may actually decide to charge you to use services. That's completely up to them and within their realm of possibility, so. So at a minimum, they'll be like, if our library's decertified, any library in Massachusetts is gonna be like, we're not lending to Rutland, too bad. That's in the rules.
So that, because it's at the state level, and then Rutland gets, like, on this other list, like, don't let anyone from Rutland borrow?
Correct.
You get put on like a shun, you're like a
Yeah.
shun.
They send out an email, they tell you which libraries are not certified.
Yeah, and
We get an email that says this specific community has not certified their library.
Just out of curiosity, in any given year in Massachusetts, are there any decertified
A
libraries?
few years back, well, there are a couple,
Yeah, there are a few.
and there are a few that don't actually get certification, nor have they ever tried to.
But they're very tiny,
They're very-
and they're
yeah.
in the west, and their populations are like next to nothing, like nothing.
A
You
few
know, we're almost
years,
10,000
Right.
people.
Okay.
But one of the most recent ones that's in Worcester County, I think, was in Millville. That was a few years ago. So everybody in the library community knew that Millville was
Yeah.
decertified, and that even they're in TWMR, so even they were like, you don't loan to them, they're on
Yeah.
their own.
The optics and then the reputation of Rutland, when
Oh, it's
people hear
horrible.
that, like,
It's
that's
really horrible.
That's
Because
another
I-
disincentive.
That's
well,
horrible.
that's,
Like, oh my gosh.
that's actually, that's when you really find out. I went to a conference years ago, and the library director from Saugus was telling me that for many years, her budget kept going down and down, until she kept saying to her patrons, go to Lynn, go someplace else, she tried to get them to expand their horizons, so she kept it, what she called her library, on life support for 4 years, until finally she could no longer do that. Those people continued to go to the outskirts of their community for library service, and once that community became decertified, they went, sorry, and no, this is my library, I've been coming here for years, sorry, you don't support your library, we can't support you.
Oh, yes, and there's another wrinkle which is coming upon us very quickly when we were talking about the new building, the new residences for seniors. We're really close to being 10,000 population, like we're over 9,000 I think right now, right?
But could we not muddy the waters yet for that,
Right.
please?
But I just
Let's
wanna
stick with
say-
where we're at, because that brings a whole nother, please
That's
don't,
another
please
can of
don't.
This is just more incentive
I know, but
vote at the ballot.
Sure.
Yes, to stay informed. There's a lot of
Stick with one
information.
line.
I don't think people really understand the significant rules that librarians and libraries have to follow to stay within, we have rules just like everyone else does.
Yeah, and there's stuff in actually Massachusetts general law, like on the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners site. Like that's the state agency that governs libraries in the state, and they're all like MGL laws. So it's all legit. It's not just made up, like libraries want funding. It's real.
I think it's important too, because Carrie has homeschool groups that come in here
Yes.
that depend on the library. You have some people that don't have internet connection that depend on this. I think there's a misconception because there's a lot of nice big new homes around that we don't have people that are in need.
Yes.
If you're on the soccer field with all the other parents, I was there too, you don't understand that there's a whole other group of people. There's so many seniors that are sheltered in place that depend on those resources and these resources. And it's going to impact them with the override as well. So we've talked about what kind of opportunities we can try to provide through assessments and other programs to try to assist the ones that truly cannot afford it. But people don't understand that all these resources in every department are extremely important to families in town, so.
Yes, and also to that point specifically, there are no certified librarians in any of the Rutland schools. So if this library becomes decertified, you're really you're hurting students and kids again, because they don't have librarians in their town schools, just at the high school, so.
Well, the school district
Yeah.
cut libraries a few years ago.
Exactly.
Period. Or none.
Exactly.
You gonna cut anything from us from the Council on Aging?
Well, all right, Nancy, it's your turn. And does anyone have any other library questions?
I do. A comment, not a question.
Okay.
I want everybody here to first appreciate Carrie's wardrobe. And an important note with Carrie to do with the humanities grant. Carrie took the charge, took the lead for the Smithsonian.
Before you
I've
go,
never.
I'd just like to ask you to remain in your seats just for a minute. And my apologies, I'm going to read it off my phone because I don't have the card. So, from the Friends of the Rutland Library, we'd like to present Carrie with a token of our appreciation. And from traveling to Essex to spending literally hours. I swear she had a cot set upstairs and just lived here, got up in the morning. The countless hours in helping with the programming. If you don't know, and I do know because I was on the 300 committee, this was dumped on Carrie, literally dumped. Here comes the Smithsonian, do what you want. Okay. No list, no programming, nothing. So.
Thank you, Patty.
During COVID, it was the library and the senior centers that initially stepped, and the fire department was, I'm not trying to dismiss from them, but they stepped up and they really reached out and they helped the community at a time it was in need, so that's important.
Anyway, that was all I was going to, pretty much what she said.
Thank you.
But you didn't bring flowers, so.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, Nancy, floor is yours.
Well, I would like to thank Carrie too, because of all the department heads, and everybody gives us support most in some way, but she's always been there for the Council on Aging. We have a library at the Council on Aging, which I'm gonna clear up for everybody here. The building is a community center. The Council on Aging is the organization that does all of the advocacy and resource, I know Darren knows this from Holden, for this location in the state of Massachusetts. The senior center is housed and part of, under the umbrella of the Council on Aging. That being said, where it is a community center, the seniors are a part of this community. and they're almost a third of this time. And I invite you all, and anybody, your neighbors, not only to volunteer or to come visit us and to see what we do, because I feel sometimes, or we all do, like we're working against all odds in most cases. We're kind of separate and away from the center of town, but a lot goes on there, and there isn't a week that goes by where I don't say to several of our seniors, whether they're in-house doing something or they are confined to their homes, that they're the best part of my day. And that's why we're there. It certainly is not we work well above the hours, but it's not the money, it's the people. And we should cherish those people. We see it in all our families as people get older. They're less able to do things, but they started the groundwork for all of us, and they shouldn't be ignored, and oftentimes they are. That being said, I do have a pamphlet over there. It's spread out so you can see each page, and then there are stapled copies if you would like to see it that will outline. I'm just going to grab one so I don't forget the cuts. But as of now, we would still be cut $8,000 from a $64,000 budget that is primarily salary, but it's 23 hours for the director. It's 16 hours for outreach support. And I could not say enough. I did a little bit of a page, and this is vague as my volunteers who run that place, really. It's vague, it doesn't even include everything. It does not include the entire work during the pandemic of hundreds and hundreds of hours, making phone calls from personal cell phones, coming to the clinics, just outreach, making sure that everybody's okay to a demographic that was really frightened and confined to their homes, which created a whole other world of problems. The Alzheimer's Association has notified us actually 2 years ago that the town of Rutland has one of the highest incidences of Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. Really? Yeah, and that got worse with the pandemic, with people being home. So one of the pages in here, I've outlined just volunteer hours for reaching out to people, but everything else they do, and highlighting the significance on the drivers. The drivers put in over 2,600 hours. That's 2 drivers a day, 5 days a week to get meals to the homebound. And we're a small town, we don't have as many as some of the other towns of the meals going out, but it doesn't matter. If somebody can't get food and we deliver to 2 people, it matters, but 2,600 hours. And with that and the professional services, we have hair, we have a salon in there now that brings in foot care. Dr. Moreno, who's a resident in town, has a business in Holden, comes to us once a month to provide services for people that can't get to his office, or just to make it easier. We have hair services that come in. Dale's sister is kind enough to do that. Volunteer instructors. We have some certified paid instructors for exercise that we finally brought up to 5 days a week, okay, which is very important. If you stop moving, you stop moving. Some of these people attend exercise class 2, 3 times, 5 times a week. The kitchen volunteers, just the staff that helps the Meals on Wheels on-site manager. Over 1,500 hours just in the Meals on Wheels program. And then other events, another several hundred hours. But so just totaling the stuff that, the hours that I could factor in, I came up with, sorry, I have to put my glasses on, 6,594. So if I just average that to 6,500 hours and we paid those people minimum wage of $15, current minimum wage, that would be $97,500. Just in that, and that does not include the staff that volunteers, over 500 annually. Doesn't include all the pandemic volunteers. Doesn't include the driving, the shopping for events. So that's part of what's outlined here. So the $8,000 would be a cut to us. Again, it's mostly, that $64,000 budget is mostly staffing for a 23-hour and a 16. It would be cut to my small purchase services, which we fund the exercise through, so I would have to utilize we do get $12 per senior for outside services from the state and federal. But we utilize that for exercise too, so I would have to rely all on that. I'd probably have to go outside to other resources like banks to see if I could get some of these funded. And or charge. Right now, we don't charge for exercise because we feel it is probably the most important thing that we can offer to the seniors. Other centers do. It would be a reduction in, so it would be $4,000, $674 out of purchase services. The only thing I would leave in there is $1,200 to maintain my service, my senior center service, which is a computerized system. That it's a check-in system, it does all of our tracking, enables us to run different reports. I would reduce our supply budget, which is minimal at best, of $1,400. That would be gone. And I'd still have to pull some from staffing. That would be our cuts. It would leave the center to rely on the resources of the yearly formula grant, which I just talked about, at $12 per seniors. Many of these volunteers are seniors themselves, so what that volunteer base increases, you know, they should be enjoying the center and what it has to offer, not spending so much time providing the services. So, you know, just, if I could say anything, just reach out, come visit, you know, and see what we do, and you can always join. Anybody can be a member there. It's just a $10 fee, and it supports the stuff that our Friends group does, which they do an awful lot for. There's a gift account that you can make a donation to for Council on Aging. But more importantly, again, I always say every year at the volunteer appreciation lunch that I do, my volunteers, I have the best volunteers. I have the most volunteers. I have the most dedicated volunteers of any group. And you know what? That's what makes it fun. It makes it a lot of fun.
So if you haven't been to the senior center in a long time, you should really go and see, because the volunteers have done a ton of work in the building. And they actually painted these walls, right? Wasn't it?
Yes,
senior work
yes,
off?
that's
We
the
painted
senior
the-
work off.
the
And they
se-
went
And
above
hung
and
these
beyond
beautiful
their-
things.
There's a tremendous amount of volunteer work that's being done in town that people need to recognize and appreciate, so.
Yes,
Yes.
everything you just said about all the services that are provided are all done by part-time staff or volunteers. And I think that's very sad, and I think the people of Rutland need to know that the town does not even support a full-time Council on Aging senior center for the seniors in this town. And all those students that are in all those schools are going to be seniors someday. And they really, really need to think about the services they provide for the town. Nancy works so hard at keeping that senior center going, and it's only open till, what, 1 o'clock in the afternoon?
Well, that's our, like, office hours. We're usually there till 3, 4 o'clock. But yeah, oftentimes we can't run programming
But most
unless
of
it's a special event beyond one. We don't have the resources.
So I'll just have to say, so I was a mama's boy, so I'm big on, like, I mean, we owe our seniors, and that was part of the reason that I got involved, but unfortunately, my wife being the director of the Council on Aging limited me being involved, so it kind of defeated the purpose, because I had to recuse myself often, but we always took care of our seniors, our elderly, and we've lost that in society, I feel, and we need to get back to that. Because it's a growing population, it's becoming much larger than our, you take care of your babies and you take care of your parents because they took care of you, and it's a circle of life, and I don't think that we really appreciate that anymore, so.
And for those of you that do help, we appreciate it. We appreciate all the outside communities. The Worcester County Sheriff's Department helps every senior center in the county. You know, Senator Goby's office, Representative Ferguson's office, Congressman McGovern's office. He's there every year at the pancake breakfast on 4th of July, serving pancakes.
You didn't mention the food, the vegetables and the.
Oh, yeah, this will be our
It's a
third
tremendous
year. We had CARES Act money helping us afford it, and then we had donations this year, but we supplied over 2,000 pounds of fresh vegetables and fruits to the seniors in town that took advantage of that program.
And also, if I may, thank you, Nancy, thank you very much for what you do and for your talk. The 2.5 override, when it's passed, will bring that up to a full-time Council on Aging. So we have to remember that. So that's a needs-based budget, and we all know that need is there. So, I thank you.
No, thank you for saying that. I was tied with the other, but I do have to, again, I have a few seniors here who are wonderful. Melanie, Mary to the center, Dale helps us, all of you, but Dick Price, my hat goes off to you. He implemented the Meals on Wheels program for the town of Rutland, and he is a driver still today. And truly, truly cares about the seniors in town.
And one more thing, Nancy, during the COVID outbreak, Holden, the town of Holden, I work for the Council on Aging in Holden, we could not get vaccinations. I had 80, 90-year-old seniors driving both ends of the state trying to get a vaccination. If it wasn't for Nancy and the library, Holden seniors wouldn't have gotten their vaccinations. So I don't think many people in town know that.
Thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Nancy.
Thanks, Nancy.
So we have coffee and cookies. Please
What
go
about
and
the
help yourself
slideshow?
and ask questions also.
We haven't seen the slideshow, actually.
Oh, Jean can show you our little slideshow. My board is awesome. I have an awesome board, and they will do everything they can to help this community maintain library service. So this is one of the things they thought they could do.
So I do want to thank Gary and Karen for coming. It's a tough situation. Put her on the hot seat.